Welcome to Shadow Shorts. This is where every weekday at noon Eastern, I bring to you a short conversation with an expert, a thought leader, a doer in the realm of innovation for the built environment. My name is Jeff Echols. I'm a senior advisor and the head of marketing for Shadow Partners. And today I'm joined by Jason Rostar of HED. He's in Chicago. We met just last week as we're recording this, in fact, at Shadow Summit in Atlanta. And I asked Jason if he would come on to Shadow Shorts today so that we could talk about the curiosity that's necessary, not only for professional development, but as we think of innovations, like how, if we're not curious, how do we even get to that point? So, Jason, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Looks like you made it
Thanks.
back to Chicago okay.
Yep. It's a little chilly, but thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It was a good time in Atlanta last week, and looking forward to chatting today.
Absolutely. A little warmer time in Atlanta than you have in Chicago right now, but
Yes.
here we are. So before we went live, you were talking about the curiosity, and we were talking about professional development, and that's a great place, I think, to start this conversation. But as you look around, and I'm, obviously I think you're gonna talk about this from the perspective of HED, but I tend to believe this is not an HED specific problem. But what you were talking about earlier was a bit of lack of curiosity or exploration when it comes to professional development. So, can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So I manage the practice technology team at HED, and we are responsible for helping set up the technology, the tools, the workflows, so that the architects and engineers can do their job to deliver projects to our clients. And one of the things that we're really struggling with is how do we get the architects and engineers engaged in learning how to use their tools. Our platform that we deliver all our projects with is the Autodesk Revit platform, and really, how do we get our staff proficient? How do we get them to be engaged with training, so that they can use their tools effectively? And we really think about it, the Revit platform, BIM 360, all of those connecting pieces as the tools of the trade of today, right? In the past, you had the tools like pencil, vellum, pen, ink, etc., right? And that's migrated over the years through AutoCAD now into BIM, and the tools all connected to that. And we've really seen this drop of um, staff continuing to hone their craft with the tools. A lot of our project teams are capable and able to use the tools, but they kind of stop developing once they get to that um, base level of knowledge. And it's really a struggle to see, when we introduce new tools, when we introduce new workflows, how do we get them curious and interested to not just embrace the change and the continuous improvement, but how do we also get them to think about how can I be more efficient in how I do my work, and not just do the same thing that I've done 4, 5, 6 projects in a row, over and over and over again. But how can we improve it? How can we look for opportunities to be more efficient, more effective, deliver better results for our clients? And that's been a real struggle to get them engaged in that way.
That's interesting, and I know that's an issue out there. And one thing I've wondered about is, when I think about the AEC space, which is my background, this is, I'm not coming into a space and throwing anybody under the bus. But I think, for as progressive as architecture and engineering firms are in terms of design, maybe use of materials, et cetera, I don't think we're that progressive when it comes to using and developing tools. And I have often thought that part of the reason is probably because it's such a deadline driven
Mm-hmm.
um, field or profession. So, hey, okay, you've got this new workflow, great. How's this going to help me get to that deadline faster? How is it going to, or get the work done ahead of that deadline? I guess is that. Do you think that's part of the lack of curiosity, or is there something else to it?
Yeah, I definitely think that's a huge driving factor from a firm's ability to be profitable and keep delivering high quality projects, right? We just actually recently did some full day offsite training in our
Hmm.
offices across the entire country. And some of the feedback that we got ahead of time, we were asking staff to go offsite for a full 6 hours, take breakfast, take lunch, set aside any meetings that you had, etc. And before we started doing that, there was a lot of pushback, can we just do this over a lunch hour? Can we do this virtually? Do we need to be in person? And the response that we got afterwards has been incredibly positive, right? The
Mhm.
getting people to disconnect for a little bit, to do a full dedicated 6 hours focused training conversation really was an engaging experience for a lot of people. And so we did, pre training surveys, post training surveys, and it was very positively received. And I've been with HED for 8 years. That's one of the first times that we've ever done something that comprehensive for everybody, right? Like we might do targeted training for an individual here or there, but this was, all of the architects, all of the engineers required to be their type of training. And it really, in the short time that since we've done some of the offices, it's made a pretty significant impact in how people get engaged, how they reach out, making them aware of what resources are available to help them grow and stuff. So that's been a really positive experience. And I think that, that reluctance is directly driven by, project deadlines, like you said, the
Mhm.
milestones. And, quite often what we're seeing is that staff are, hitting a milestone for, let's say, CDs on a project. And then the next week they're being assigned to another project
Right.
immediately and jumping right into the middle of it without any time in between to disconnect, to debrief, to do a lessons learned, to investigate what could have been better. And those are all some of the topics that we're exploring right now as a company, to see, look, how can we slow down to go faster? How can we,
Mhm.
plan our projects better so that we can be more successful in the long term as opposed to taking shortcuts for the short term success.
Yeah, I remember those days. I remember specifically having a sort of a celebration dinner after the completion of
Mm-hmm.
one project, and oh, by the way, tomorrow we're starting, whatever the next one was. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, pretty common, I guess, in the field. So I know not everybody, right? Innovation is not for everybody. Not everybody is an
Mm-hmm.
innovator. Do you, as you look out across the staff and you have these offsites or this offsite, things like that, do you have a way to identify the people that are curious,
Yeah.
um, to identify the potential for growth and innovation?
Yeah, so internally within HED, we actually have a couple different processes to try to help with that. We do what we call office hours, where members of the practice technology team will be on a Zoom call twice a week, and we just invite anybody to show up and ask questions and get answers to things that maybe they're running into. We also have a research and development grant internally that our staff can apply for. So, if they see an opportunity to try a new tool or to develop a new process, or want to get engaged with our team to develop something new, there's an avenue so that they can offset maybe some of the hours so it's not having a negative
Mhm.
impact on their project, right? So, and we've had some really great successes with that effort, right? Where we've had some users reach out to us that say, hey, this is a problem I'm really struggling with, here's a tool that I think might help, can we explore it? And then we'll help them and we'll walk them through the process. And we've that's had an impact on a number of our really complicated projects lately. And so we're trying to continue to push that things from that perspective, to make sure people are aware of these resources that are available, make sure that people are engaged, that they know where to go and ask questions if they're running into problems, etc.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's so we, at Shadow Summit, we had demo day for our incubator cohort that had just wrapped up, and all these early stage incubators that we run, they always start with a problem, right? Here's a
Mm-hmm.
problem that we've identified, and back to your original or to the original theme of this conversation, right? We've got to have that curiosity. As you look at your role at HED and beyond, a wider view of the profession, I guess is a better way to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where do you see potential for innovation in the profession coming from? And I guess I'm thinking mainly in technology because we hear so much. We were
Right.
at Summit, we heard about AI, we heard about EV and EV infrastructure, and lots of other technology type topics. Of course, several different technology ideas from the demo day. But where do you see the possibilities in the profession?
Yeah, so I think when you go to a lot of these types of shadow summits, or Autodesk University, or these other
Mm-hmm.
conferences like Acadia, there's a lot of really flashy, really impressive,
Mm-hmm.
cool objects, right? But one of the things that I'm really focused on is really the foundational elements of the technology, right? And it's really possible to have like this flash in the pan, really solid success story that you can go to a conference and talk about. But that's typically like a hero type that's gonna like
Mm-hmm.
have some idea, right, and have an impact on a single project. And really, what we're trying to do is try to have an impact at the foundational level across the entire firm and across all the users, right? So it's not just a flash in the pan, one successful project, but rather sustained success over long term. And really, I think that comes down to how do we get our staff to really be experts at the tools of the trade, right? How do we get
Mm-hmm.
them to be experts at the tools that they're using every single day, so that they don't need a BIM manager to do the high level things for them, but rather they can do it themselves. And that then frees up the BIM manager types like the practice technology team to be able to do more innovative things and push the envelope and continue to push and push and push. And so that's really what we're focused on right now, is how do we upskill everybody across the board. And that's been a real struggle, because if you look at our industry, if you think of back to the Great Recession, and like even my generation, that a lot of the people I came in the industry with are no longer in the industry, just purely from a timing perspective, right? Like they went to other industries because there wasn't opportunities in architecture and engineering. And so there's this gap, I think, between junior employees and more senior employees in terms of mentorship and growth. And there's a struggle where a lot of the more senior staff don't have the technology experience with the tools of today. They know how to put a drawing set together. They're really skilled and really knowledgeable about building design and construction and things. But there's this gap right now, and so you don't have anybody in this middle ground to teach the younger staff how to use the tools, how to level up, how to do the things like you would have done during the hand drafting days of coming in and practicing every single day your lettering, your line weights, how to hold the pencil and the pen properly. The equivalent of that would be is coming in and learning how to manipulate the BIM properly, how to manipulate and use Revit more efficiently, how to collect the data from one project and reuse it successfully on another project, or analyze the data in a way that it helps inform the next project, right? We don't have those same exercises happening anymore, and I think that's been part of our stagnation as a industry, is we need to really hone those foundational level skill sets so that everybody can be proficient in the tools, and everybody can deliver a project and understand how to get there.
I'm always curious when I hear somebody talk about a gap, and I know exactly what you're talking about, right? We've got generational gaps. We got a really interesting, and it's not just in the AEC world, but certainly in the AEC world, you've got a really interesting transitional or a generational shift right now, going from boomers to X to millennials and Z's. Is that gap, and maybe that's a gap, maybe it's knowledge transfer. I'm not exactly sure what it is that needs to span the gap, but is that gap a place that we might see disruption in the profession? Does somebody come in, and I mean, I know there was a presentation from our incubator cohort about
Mm-hmm.
training, but is it something even bigger than that, where hey, we're very, very rapidly going from this generation to the next, and there is this gap that you're
Mm-hmm.
describing? Is that a place that the profession is ripe for disruption?
I definitely think that there's an opportunity there, right? And I refer to it as tribal knowledge, right? You have all these
Mm,
professionals that have all this really great knowledge from their years of experience, but there has not been an opportunity to collect that knowledge, to organize it, to uh, pass that down in that sense. And I think that's there's a real risk to a lot of firms right now, including ours, that those people are going to retire. They're
Yeah.
going to take all this knowledge with them, and we're going to be missing out on how to do some of these things that they were taking care of, right? So there's definitely an opportunity of how can we start to collect that knowledge, that experience in a way that we can either pass it down or we can categorize it, and then we can learn from it before it's too late and we lose these employees that have an insane amount of knowledge and experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's exactly the point, right? I think one of the big differences between, well, I don't know if that's the fair way to say it, but you do have that institutional knowledge of someone that's been in the profession for 20, 30 or more years. Um, and I think you're exactly right as you identify that gap. It's what's driving the gap. Certainly, it's age, but I think it is that technological difference.
Mm-hmm.
My familiarity versus their familiarity with the different technologies, and I think that becomes a almost something that causes a lost in translation situation.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So we've, I think if I were to sum it up, I guess we got to start getting curious and figure out how we're going to handle that knowledge transfer so that we
Mm-hmm.
don't lose it. But then we also have to depend all the way through the profession on people, being accountable for themselves and being
Yeah.
curious, in exploring. Maybe what we're talking about on some level is digital transformation, but there's no way we get to into innovation if we don't if we're not curious as well.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is a both ways situation, right? Where it's like we need to figure out how do we capture that long term experience, knowledge, and everything else, but then how can we also at the same time upskill our staff so they continue to be we continue to improve how we deliver projects. We continue to
Yeah,
look for opportunities to do better to satisfy our clients. Of course, clients always are looking for faster,
sure.
cheaper, and better, right? And we have to be able to respond to that in a way that means that we need to constantly think about ourselves and our skills and our as an individual, not just as our firm. How can we as an individual get better, faster, more efficient with the tools that we use every single day?
Yeah, yeah. That needs to be our next conversation. There's going to be that tension, right? Better, faster, and fees, and
Mm-hmm.
how technology is affecting that. So maybe I'll have Jason back, and we can talk about that, because I think that's also a place that's
Yeah.
it's not only ripe for innovation, but I think innovation is going to have a huge impact on that uh, uh, client, architect engineer relationship as well.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to have a conversation about that in the future.
All right. We'll do it again. We'll schedule another one of these. We'll bring you another Shadow Short. This has been Jason Rostar. He is the Associate Principal and Corporate Design Technology Leader at HED. Again, Jason and I met last week in Atlanta at Shadow Summit, and this has been a fun conversation. Jason, I
Yeah.
thank you for coming to talk about curiosity, innovation, and this gap, this knowledge transfer that we've got to figure out.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And for all of you that are out there watching or listening, whichever version of Shadow Shorts you're consuming, I appreciate you. I'll be back again tomorrow with another Shadow Short. Thanks, everybody.